There are moments that change everything, not with thunder or noise, but with silence. The kind of silence that makes you hear your own heart beating slower, heavier, tired. If you've ever found yourself standing in that stillness, caught between the person you were and the one you're meant to become, stay close. Sometimes life whispers its greatest lessons through pain, and those who listen heal. Subscribe to the Tales Beyond Word for more motivation and healing, and let this story find you where you are. Jack didn't wake up one morning and decide to fall apart. It happened quietly, one disappointment at a time. One unanswered message, one rejection, one goodbye he never got to say. Life has a way of piling small weights onto your shoulders until one day, you realize you can barely stand. He used to believe he was strong, the kind of strong that laughs through struggle and keeps moving no matter what. But there comes a moment when pretending becomes too heavy to carry. He was 26 when he lost his job, not just any job, but the one he had built his identity around. For years, he had poured every ounce of himself into it. Late nights, early mornings, skipped birthdays, missed calls from his mother that ended with her voicemail saying, "Jack, just call me back, I miss your voice." He thought success would fill the emptiness he carried. But when it all slipped away, he realized it had only distracted him from it. Days blurred into each other. Mornings felt the same as nights. Food lost its taste. The world kept moving, and Jack, he just watched it pass by. Pain has a strange way of making you invisible, even to yourself. One night, he sat in his apartment, staring at the glow of his computer screen, the cursor blinking on an empty document. He wanted to write something, anything, a resignation to the pain, a letter to the universe, a question it would never answer. Instead, his fingers hovered over the keys and stopped. The silence pressed against his chest until he whispered, "What's the point anymore?" And for the first time, he meant it. But life, in its quiet mercy, has a way of answering back. Not in words, but in timing. The next morning, his phone buzzed. It was a message from his old teacher, Mrs. Rowan, the one who once told him he had a gift for words. "I'm starting a writing program for teens who have been through rough times," she wrote. "Could use someone like you to guide them." Jack almost ignored it. The voice of doubt spoke first, the one that said, "You can't even fix your own life. How could you help someone else?" But something softer followed, a whisper he hadn't heard in a long time. "Maybe this is the point." He went, not because he believed in himself again, but because he had nothing left to lose. The classroom was small, a circle of nervous faces staring back at him. Kids who had already seen too much of the world's sharp edges. A girl named Ava who hadn't spoken since her brother passed. A boy named Theo who hid behind sarcasm, but wrote the most honest words Jack had ever read. He didn't have to teach them much. They just needed someone to listen. So he did. He listened to their stories, their fears, their silences. And in listening, he began to heal parts of himself he didn't know were still bleeding. One afternoon, Ava handed him a folded paper. It read, "Sometimes I feel broken, but maybe broken things still let the light through." Jack smiled, not because it was perfect, but because it was true. He realized that pain was not something to escape, but something to understand. Week by week, he began to change. The more he gave, the more he received. The more he helped others find their voice, the louder his own began to sound again. He started waking up early, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He'd walk through the quiet streets of his neighborhood, feeling the cold morning air against his face. There was something peaceful in that stillness, something alive. He'd stop at a small coffee shop on the corner, where the barista always smiled without asking questions, just handed him a cup that said, "You're doing better than you think." And maybe he was. One evening after class, Theo stayed behind. "Why do you do this?" he asked. "You could be anywhere. Why help us?" Jack paused, his hand resting on the back of a chair. He thought for a moment before replying, "Because I know what it's like to feel lost, and I don't want anyone else to think they have to stay that way." That night, Jack sat by his window with his notebook open, pages filled with words that no longer came from pain, but from purpose. He wrote about second chances, about how losing everything can sometimes be the beginning of finding yourself, about how the hardest seasons aren't meant to destroy us, they're meant to shape us. He finally understood pain isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of your strength. It's the fire that forges you, not the storm that breaks you. Months later, the writing program grew. More kids joined. The walls that once echoed with silence now carried laughter, dreams, and the sound of pencils scratching hope into paper. Jack watched them and smiled. He wasn't healed completely. Maybe he never would be, but healing isn't about being whole again. It's about learning to live beautifully with your cracks. One afternoon, Mrs. Rowan found him sitting outside, looking out at the sunset. "You've changed," she said softly. Jack nodded. "I think I finally learned what my pain was trying to teach me." She smiled, "And what's that?" He looked at the horizon, the same sky he once stared into, searching for meaning, and said, "That maybe purpose isn't something you find. Maybe it's something pain builds for you piece by piece when you're ready to rise again." That night he went back to his apartment, the same place where he once whispered, "What's the point anymore?" and smiled. Because now he had an answer. So if you're listening right now, lost somewhere between the weight of your past and the uncertainty of your future, remember this: your pain is not proof of weakness. It's proof of growth. It's the universe's way of shaping you into someone capable of light. One day, you'll look back and realize that every scar, every tear, every sleepless night was guiding you not away from yourself, but toward your purpose. Because sometimes, the things that break us are the very things that build us. And if this story touched a quiet part of your heart, maybe your next healing begins here, waiting softly, beyond the words on the tales beyond word. Subscribe for more motivation and healing, and keep walking gently toward yourself.